Today I was going to talk about what resources you are using, as well as before I get into that too, and a little bit about my game plan since my career has kind of changed and my next step is waiting for me as well. So first I'll share a little bit about myself, as well as my story, and then some of the resources that I have come across as well. Again, my name is Holly Pohl. I've been in the recruiting, sourcing, talent acquisition for 19 years. I'm a girl mom. I have identical twins that are going to be 9, and then I have a 5-year-old as well, soon to be 6. I love to be outdoors. I do a lot of flower gardening, vegetable gardening. Anything outdoors is where I enjoy it being my most relaxed and just taking the time in as much as possible. And then we also have a little mini hobby farm, I call it. It's kind of chaotic, but it's fun. We have 2 golden labs, as well as 2 cats and about 20 plus chickens. So that's always fun to juggle and to deal with as well. A little bit about my story in my past career. As many of my colleagues have mentioned, I stumbled also into the recruiting industry, if you will. Back in high school, I started off working on site in a agency called Spherion. I just was really internal, helping them with just the basic administration responsibilities, from making copies to, eventually getting into time cards and things like that. And my responsibilities increased periodically. So with that, it involved, getting into more of the recruiting, networking, referrals in a very small community. From Spherion, I went into college and I went to apply to a company called Placement Pros. They did a lot of what they called national recruitment for VMS vendor management systems and companies, working a lot with contracted roles for various companies within the industry, various industries, pardon me, within the United States. They went through 2 acquisitions. One was with a company called VDR, and then lastly with Ronstadt. And that's where my 18 years really have been, is with Ronstadt. I started with Ronstadt back in 2005. Again, just as a recruiter, working on these various different companies. The larger companies we did support would be United Health Group, as well as Cigna Healthcare. Again, it's interesting working with, contracted roles. Now, most recently, I was doing permanent. So it's interesting where my career progressed. But then some of the smaller companies we also supported were Reed, LexisNexis, Wells Fargo, Ameriprise. And they could be, contract roles that were to hire, or just contracted for somebody filling in that was out on leave, things of that nature. But again, submitting through these VMS systems, right? So not a direct client relationship, if you will, with the hiring managers and things like that. It was that relationship with the vendor management individuals, such as, Fieldglass, IQ Navigator, some of the, to name a few of those VMS systems. My career progressed with Ronstadt after recruiting for a number of years. I took on a senior account manager role. Within that senior account manager role, I took on additional, obviously, responsibilities where I managed the account, the relationship we had with the VMS system clientele with Cigna. Cigna was one of the larger clients for us. And then I also had 3 direct reports. So with that, working a lot with the recruitment staff, if you will, so the 3 direct reports, ensuring they understand the needs, the expectations, the performance, really the KPIs that we were held to in regards to, time of submittal, quality of submittal, things like that, as well as mentoring them and growing them and training in anybody new coming in to support that specific client that we were working with as well. In addition to the working with the recruitment team and the direct reports, also really nurturing that relationship with our points of contact that work directly with Cigna management and things like that. Communication was important. Again, ensuring that we are meeting our SLAs, or service level agreements, with them as well. Addressing any concerns we have, taking any feedback they have that was concerns on their behalf. and continue obviously to grow and increase our revenue with them, trying to get additional business where possible as well. Then in 2017, I looked to make a change within my career. I really enjoyed what I was doing, but changes were happening structurally within that entity of Randstad. So I applied with a new entity within Randstad, Randstad Sourceright. And what they did within that entity, as previously mentioned, a lot of RPO business. At that point, I interviewed, went through the internal process. And with that role, I was offered to support Honeywell. Really enjoyed making that transition. Really grew, had some changes along the way. And what that consisted of is direct recruitment, really, obviously, for Honeywell. I was, still a Randstad employee, but acting as Honeywell per se when I was doing all the recruitment assets of that. I started within Honeywell supporting their aerospace division, a little bit out of my wheelhouse. Obviously, I was supporting Cigna within a lot of more administrative, clerical responsibilities, some healthcare of HEDIS nurses. So really was intrigued and excited to get into aerospace and different entities, even within Honeywell as well, to expand and grow my experience, to really get out of my comfort zone as well. So that introduced me into, again, aerospace, various different roles with them, engineering, product management, to name a few. But then in 2019 with COVID, obviously it impacted their aerospace division. And then from there, really spiked another division for Honeywell, and that was their Safety, Productivity, and Solutions, known as SPS. So I made a transition internally, still with Randstad, but just supporting a different division, business unit, if you will, of Honeywell. They had to really hit the ground, started from nothing and hit it hard, and really create safety type of products. So they completely transitioned an aerospace facility in Arizona and transitioned it to a SPS division that was doing the mass productions. And we had to ramp up and hire a variety of different types of employees for Honeywell, from their various different CNC machine operators, leads, managers, even just to some of the production types of teams that would help assemble the basic pieces of the masks into the automation of those CNC machines and so forth. In addition to that, I continued on supporting SPS throughout 2017 all the way up to 2023. I did take on a lead role in 2021, and that really worked a lot with supporting various different territories for our entire team of SPS. I had weekly touch bases with various colleagues that were in our central and west territories, and that involved a lot of just various touch points of, their current rec volume, successes, challenges they're seeing. In addition to those weekly one-on-one touch bases with my colleagues within those territories, I took it upon myself to be able to do a bi-weekly meeting with all the rest of the core team that aligned under the SPS. And that bi-weekly meeting really was to bring us together. You're siloed when you're remote, but it was important that we stay connected, talk about various different work topics, things that were happening, if it was that week, the week before, topics of conversation. So that could involve our ATS. We were in a process of transitioning. So different tips, tricks, and pointers to be successful within that ATS. But also with that, just various topics, maybe about sponsorships or visas and how things are changing, different requirements, things of that nature as well. In 2023, unfortunately, my company Randstad was not able to re-sign the contract with Honeywell, so I was impacted and laid off. So after being with them for about 18 years, now what? My game plan, I had to figure out, times obviously have changed since I interviewed 18 years ago. Again, as other of my colleagues shared today on the presentations, what is going to happen? I'm not maybe up to speed. I need to freshen up and brushen up, obviously, in my skills as well. Specifically, AI, different, resources like that. So I'm working through that specifically as well. I was able to regain a contracted role, thankfully, for a short period of time. But then it was just recently impacted in March just due to really lack of business, a lot of hiring and renegotiations and restructures, if you will. So I'm back on the market, really trying to understand, what it's going to look like for me to brush up on my skills, update my resume, interviewing practices, things along those lines. And within my search of which I've just started, I have come across some additional resources, most locally, but I thought to still be able to present them today, as you may be able to find them locally within your area as well, and hoping it to be beneficial to you too. So one local resource here to Minnesota is a Career Force Minnesota, it's called. I actually signed up and conducted and was part of, a resume writing workshop. I did not participate. I was just taking all the information in to get everything up to, date on my resume, particularly as well. I was really intrigued by some of the information that was shared during this workshop, and I'll share some of that tidbit of information here shortly. But I would encourage anybody that is in Minnesota, or if you are obviously in various other locations, to really try to see if there's any local resources that you can utilize. I do know a lot of my other colleagues on this call also shared a lot with different networking capabilities, and I think that's huge. That's really, to be honest, where I feel I have been able to make some headway with my job search. I feel it's not what you know this day and age, unfortunately, but it's who you know. And I've tried to stay in contact with a lot of my prior managers, colleagues, and I've reached out to them, unfortunately, probably twice now in the last year. But I'm also trying to be helpful to them as well. So if I see things, I'm sharing that, I'm tagging them. And I think, as Dan mentioned earlier, not just liking it, but really adding value to that, right? To incorporate different comments or mentioning them, or, if they're mentioning something on any social media platform, commenting for additional reach as well. Some of the information back that I gained through this resume workshop was really that the presenter was really saying that one piece that caught my eyes, and I can relate to it a little bit as well. Really have 20 seconds to grasp that potential employer's attention. That top 1/3, I'm going to quote it as the presenter during their workshop said, prime real estate. And as mentioned earlier in our presentation by a colleague, is that you really want to tailor your resume to what you're applying for. That's something I'm working on myself. Obviously, it's definitely changed from 18 years ago, but really finding those key points. So if you have a certification, if you're in, the medical field, then you have certifications, or maybe if you're in the financial field, you want that information listed at the top of your resume. It's crucial. It is something that they are looking for. Education, depending upon, again, what the requirements of the job are. The requirements may require bachelor's, master's, etc., and so on. You want to highlight that, on your resume as well. And again, in that top 1/3. In addition to that, consider your resume format. Chronological, I would say, is probably, in my personal opinion, the most common utilized. But if you are looking to make a change, the individual that was doing this presentation during the workshop, mentioned that consider combination. You can really list, all of your experience and explain your story as to why you're looking to make that career change from, let's say, being a recruiter to wanting to be a baker. If you just use a chronological resume, they're going to be confused as to why you're applying to their position, or that combination may be able to really highlight your skill sets. As mentioned earlier, maybe you have different job related skills that could be that. Maybe you have some previous experience skill sets that could be translatable in that combination resume as well. So it emphasizes a little bit more of why you're best suited for the job. It can also maybe benefit you if you have some employment gaps as well, to not necessarily hide, but to not have them stick out and make them an eyesore. So definitely consider those within your job search as well. And then in regards to kind of other things that are going to be offered within, again, the specific Career Force Minnesota, they do offer some additional workshops. Some are virtual, so it may be a benefit to anybody able to go ahead and sign up. I'm not sure if you are out of state, if they would allow it or not, but I thought it was still beneficial. They do offer different interviewing skill workshops. They also career planning, preparing for the job hunt, and different classes listed there, as I mentioned as well. And then lastly, different resources, just consider that to be use them wisely. Follow up with individuals that you've reached out to. If you can help them, offer that. Maybe it's not an opportunity for a job, but maybe it's looking at their resume. Maybe it's taking a 5-minute call to have them prep for an interview or anything like that, and spend the quality time and develop those resources. I think to really be successful in the next opportunity that hopefully you're able to land as well. I'll put a couple additional links in the chat here once I conclude. But thank you everybody for your time and joining. I really enjoyed being invited and being able to share my story and experience, and wish everybody the best as well.